Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Mark 1 Tower, this is Albatross 1-3, requesting permission to land, over.
I don't need a computer to tell me how to land a damn airplane.
6.
Heads-up display, check.
5,
Lasers, check.
4,
Particle beam, check.
3,
Photon bolts, check.
2,
Chair control, check.
1.
Let's do it.
Broadcasting from a secret underground location somewhere in Mos Eisley, this is the Docking Bay 77 podcast. Make yourself comfortable. The show is about to start. Hello and welcome to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. I am your host, Dayton Johnson. Oh my God, I am super excited to talk about this film tonight. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's easily in my top 20 of all time, and I believe it made my top 7 films in the 1980s. But first, allow me to introduce the guests for this particular evening. She has her own hashtag Team Amber, and according to Jeff Johnson, she is the voice of reason. Yes, it is Amber Lewis. How are you, Amber?
I am so excited to talk about this movie. The number of times I watched it when I was 15, I can't even tell you.
You wore out that VHS copy, huh?
I did. That I taped off of HBO, stole it.
Like so many of us did. Many of us did. And he is one half of the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. It is Jason Colvin. How are you doing?
What's going on, everybody? Dayton, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this. Amber, good to see you. Thank you for pinch hitting.
Yes,
right?
Thank you.
Yes, Andrew Blakely was supposed to be here this evening, but he had to be a dad for the night, so we will miss him. Amber was good enough to jump in and pinch hit, so thank you, Amber. So, the film we are discussing. Now, this comes from one of my favorite writer-directors, and we actually covered his film Almost Famous on our 100th episode celebration a couple of years ago. Yes, Cameron Crowe, his directorial debut, Say Anything.
I'm gonna take out Diane Court.
Diane Court doesn't go out. She's a brain. Trapped in the body of a game show hostess. We don't want to see you get hurt.
I want to get hurt. So it's Lloyd, and let's go out.
Oh, thanks, but I'm busy.
So you're monumentally busy?
Well, not monumentally.
Hi, Lloyd Dalmish. I'm an athlete, so I rarely drink. Kickboxing. You heard of kickboxing? Sport of the future? I can see by your face, no. My point is you can relax because your daughter will be safe with me for the next 7 to 8 hours, sir.
Hi.
Whoa.
Maybe Diane Court really likes Lloyd. If you were Diane Court, would you honestly fall for Lloyd? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What are your plans for the future? Spend as much time possible with Diane. No, really? I'm totally and completely serious. I'm not sure if I should say, I just wanted to tell you that...
No, we don't have to say it.
How do you know what I'm going to say?
I don't know what you're going to say.
I was just going to tell you that I love you. I said it.
I know.
I gave her my heart and she gave me a pen.
Lloyd, man, no babe is worth it, dude. All you gotta do is find a girl that looks just like her and then dump her, man.
You guys know so much about women. How come you're here at, a gas and sip on a Saturday night? No women anywhere.
By choice, man. That's
Yeah,
right,
man.
man. Conscious choice.
I'm a guy. I have pride.
You're not a guy. No, the world is full of guys. Be a man.
In your eyes, the light, the heat. I am complete. Your eyes, the light, the heat. Oh, I wanna be that complete. I wanna touch the light, the heat I see in your eyes.
John Cusack, Ione Sky, Say Anything.
All right, let's hit some opening thoughts on the film, include any kind of personal history you have with it, the first time you saw it, and your opinions and how it impacted you. So, Jason, since you are our special guest, why don't you get to go first?
So I saw this on VHS. I didn't see it in the theater, which was kind of odd for me because at this time in my life, I was 16. I had my driver's license. All my friends wanted to go to the movies, and that's just something we did. But for whatever reason, this one got lost between Indiana Jones and Lethal Weapon, or, so
right. Same.
but when I watched it on VHS, I had already had a relationship with John Cusack from Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer and The Sure Thing and things like that. And so he's kind of the goofy, dorky high school kid. And then in this movie, he is the most sincere, lovable, guy you want your daughter to marry kind of person. But when I saw it, I was a high schooler. And so just his style impacted me. That's the way to do it. That's how you should be. He's a good guy. Don't be a good guy. Be a man,
That's right. That's right.
Well, it's full of guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was actually the reason why I got a trench coat because it was cool on him. So yeah, I completely agree. I don't know why I missed it in the theater. In fact, I'm pretty sure I just don't even remember it hitting the theaters. So, which I hate myself now for missing it in the theater, but that happens. But I digress. All right, Amber, opening thoughts.
I fell in love with John Cusack in The Sure Thing. I love that movie, and he was so charming in it, and he and Daphne Zuniga had a great chemistry. So then when this movie came out on VHS, I'm sure we rented it, but it was one of those that was, on HBO a lot, and I made a point of copying it and watching it like every day. And the thing about this movie is that Lloyd really does ruin all men for women. Like, he's so wonderful and so loving, and his heart is so huge, and he's such a gentleman. You spend the rest of your life like looking for Lloyd.
Right. Yes. So I'm ashamed to admit it, I have never actually seen The Sure Thing. Now,
whoa,
I know.
Right? He's got to put it at the top of the list.
I know, it's on my list. It's on my list of things to do. And I obviously saw him in 16 Candles. I saw him in, Better Off Dead and whatever. But it wasn't until I saw this film that I really was like, I want to see more John Cusack. This was the movie that really got me into him. And obviously, it was a film that started my fandom of Cameron Crowe as well. I mean, it was a directorial debut, but at that point, he'd written the book and then the screenplay, of course, for Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And so I was really into this. Like I said, I did not see it in the theater, which really, to this day, still bothers me. But once I saw it on VHS, once I read it, I was like, I love this movie. I wanted to be Lloyd. Lloyd was everybody's friend. He's the kind of out of step, but everybody knows him. Like when he goes to the party, everybody's like, hey Lloyd, he's not getting into trouble. He's living with his sister, but he even says, look, if I'm a problem, I'll leave. He doesn't want to be a burden to anybody. And he has such an interesting way of looking at life. And to Amber's point, he did kind of ruin it. Like people came up to Cameron Crowe for years, and his women would say, I'm still looking for my Lloyd Dobler, because that was the guy. And which is funny, and I want to mention it now before I forget. There's a scene when Lloyd meets Diane's father. The whole kickboxing toward the future, all this other stuff that really, that really nervous talking thing he had. That scene was actually inspired by an actual situation that happened to Cameron Crowe shortly after he moved into his first place. This kid, who turned out only a few years younger than him, showed up at his house, introduced himself, and a lot of their discussion ends up in that scene. The whole kickboxing thing, the quick talking, and the shaking his hand and whatever, that all happened. So that's kind of he was kind of an inspiration for Lloyd, and it's on the commentary on the DVD. Check it out. And there's obviously Crowe does a much better job, but I love this movie. I can watch it on repeat. I bought the DVD day one when it hit, and I used to actually fall asleep to it. Just put it in. It's great. Got great music, so why not? Yeah, it's easily one of my favorite movies of all time because it's practically perfect in almost every single way. So, and
Hey, Dave,
yes,
can I jump in on that scene you just mentioned?
absolutely.
So I was watching the movie for the podcast to prepare, go through it. And that scene where he comes through the door, he meets John Mahoney and says, "How you doing, sir? I'm Lloyd Dobler. I'm here to take out your daughter. This is what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is where I was. Now I'm back in town. And listen, I rarely drink because I'm an athlete, and I'm here. Basically, what I'm saying, sir, is your daughter is going to be safe with me for the next 6 to 8 hours. And I paused it, and I brought my daughter up, who's 16, and I said, "This is how I want you to bring a date. This is what I want to see when the guy comes through the door. This guy right here,
right?
That's your 8 simple rules right there.
Yes,
right. I want you to look me in the eye, shake my hand, tell me who you are, what's going on, where you're going to be, what time you're going to be home, and that my daughter's going to be safe with you. It's a perfect conversation between a suitor and a dad.
Yep. What always surprised me, he says between 6 to 8 hours. I'm thinking if he picks her up at 8 o'clock, that's already a late night. My God.
It is a graduation party.
I guess. Damn.
Plus, he's got to take home the drunk guy at the end, right? Forgets where he lives.
Yes, which is great. All right. Enough of that. Let's go ahead and move on.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
It's time for That's the Fact, Jack. These are some film facts about our movie. Released April 14th, 1989, which I know is Jason's favorite year from the 1980s. Budget of $16 million, box office of $20 million. I have to mention this whenever they're this high. I just can't pass it up. IMDb Metascore of 86, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 98.
Whoa.
Wow.
I know, right? And that's the reviews. That's not just the people. That's the reviews. In 2002, Entertainment Weekly ranked the film as the greatest modern movie romance and number 11 on their list of the 50 best high school movies. Now, I take an issue with that. I don't consider it a high school movie because they literally graduate, but nitpicking.
Oh my gosh.
I just don't.
They were in high school 5 minutes ago.
I know, right? I don't count that. Written and directed, of course, by Cameron Crowe, starring John Cusack, Iron Sky, Lily Taylor, Amy Brooks, who, by the way, was the daughter of producer James L. Brooks. She plays DC. John Mahoney, Joan Cusack, and Jeremy Piven. Now, there's a couple people behind the scenes I want to point out because I think it's very important. One of the producers, Polly Platt, she actually appears in the film as Corey's mom. She's in the graduation scene. She is ex-wife of the director Peter Bogdanovich, and was known for helping discover young talent, including Sybil Shepherd, Tatum O'Neal, Luke and Owen Wilson, and Wes Anderson. Part of her producing and other things she did was she made a career of mentoring young directors, which of course makes sense with Cameron Crowe and Wes Anderson. Now, this is interesting. She also introduced animator Matt Groening to James L. Brooks. So we kind of have her to thank for The Simpsons, because if it wasn't for that meeting, who knows what would have happened. Now, I usually don't mention this stuff, but the editor, edited by Richard Marx. No, not the singer, spelled differently. I mentioned him because of his career. Not only did he edit every James L. Brooks film, he also has some of these on his resume. The Godfather Part 2, Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, St. Elmo's Fire, Pretty in Pink, Dick Tracy, Assassins, and You've Got Mail, just to name a few. So that was kind of cool. And I want to mention this because I think it's fun. Corey's fashion sense was inspired by rocker Nancy Wilson of Heart. Of course, at this time was married to our director. So she also does have a song on the soundtrack. But I thought it was fun that that's where where Lily Taylor got the fashion sense for her character Corey. So that are some of my facts. Do you guys have any trivia you want to drop? I have a whole list of more stuff to bring up, so I'm going to let you guys go for a little while.
Well, mine is mostly cast based.
Okay.
You mentioned Jeremy Piven, who has like the most hilarious small part. I love him in this movie. But
Give
also
Give my favorite keys.
You must chill.
Keys.
But also Jason Gould, the son of Barbara Streisand and Elliot Gould, is the kid that gets drunk and can't find his way home.
He's Mike Cameron with that hair.
Yes. And it's so funny because the whole time I kept looking at him, I was like, God, he looks so familiar. Well, he's also in The Prince of Tides.
Right.
But it looks like completely different. So it wasn't until I looked it up that I realized who it was. BB Newirth is there.
Yep.
Apparently their school counselor, which what she's doing at that party, I'm really not sure how appropriate that was.
You know what?
But
The way she looked, I didn't care. It's like, come on in.
Lilith
come
with her
on.
hair down and everything.
Right?
Yeah.
China Phillips,
right?
From Wilson Phillips,
Mhm.
it is a blink and you miss it cameo as
Right.
Joe's girlfriend, and then one of the Heathers. Kim
There's two.
Walker
There's two
Nuh-uh.
Heathers. There's two Heathers.
Well, the one with the talks with the air quotes, like
Yes.
I recognized her immediately.
Yes. Now the second Heather, the scene she's actually hanging out with a girl every time we see her. The scene where Diane is calling her dad, and the girl with the big earrings and the other girl, they're like, I always come home crying. My dad leaves me alone. So
Yes.
two things. That's one of the Heathers. She's the cheerleader Heather, and of course Heather's was my number one high school movie of all time. Now the one with the longer hair, that earlier when BB Newirth shows up is walking away telling her boyfriend, don't even talk to me, don't even follow me.
Oh my God, that's my favorite part.
Now she is related to a 1980s rocker. He was a front man for Van Halen. That is David Lee Roth's little sister, Allison Roth.
What?
Yes.
No way.
How about that nugget, Jason?
Dude, that is a great one.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I got that
Wow.
off. I got that off the commentary on the DVD.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
All right.
And that is one of my favorite parts
Oh,
because
she's
that is
great.
literally every party I went to in high school had that
Yep.
girl and that guy having that
Yes.
same exact fight.
Yes. All right. Jason, do you have any trivia you want to drop?
So yeah, just to expand a little bit on what Amber said, you have Baby Newirth,
Mhm.
you have John Mahoney, they're
Right.
both in Seattle, right? You've got 2/5 of the Fraser ensemble in Seattle,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. I did want to bring up, did you guys recognize Diane's mother?
Well, I recognized her from broadcast news.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't recognize her, honestly.
So that's Lois Chiles, who played Dr. Goodhead in Moonraker.
Oh my gosh. That's
Right?
right.
That's awesome.
So that's Diane's mother, which I thought was cool. The alternate who could have been in this movie, I think, is super interesting.
Yes.
Like-
Go ahead and mention that because I actually didn't put that down. So I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Okay, so like Robert Downey Jr. was offered the part of Lloyd Dobler.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
See, I think that may be the only one that could have worked. I don't think Brandon Lee works. I don't think Christian Slater works. I don't
No.
think Peter Berg or Kirk Cameron works.
Kirk Cameron, definitely not.
No.
Sorry.
But like, I mean,
But Robert Downey Jr. kind of played that kind of role for a while.
did, and he's
Yeah.
a great actor,
Yeah.
But I mean, John Cusack so nails this part. I don't really
Mhm.
think anybody could have topped his performance.
I wouldn't
and
have
he
been surprised to hear it was written for him. Like,
well,
it's that good.
actually, Crowe actually had him in mind while he was doing some of the writing, and he had to convince him to take the role because at this point, Cusack had already done the high school thing.
He's like 35. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this isn't Grease. Let's not get crazy. But he had to be convinced. And once he started writing it and showing to him, he really bought into, and they actually built his character together. Because there's some scenes you can kind of tell that there's a little bit of a dark edge to Lloyd, and they kind of built on that as well. But yeah, he did say, Cameron Crowe did say in the commentary that he had him pictured when he was writing the screenplay. So it definitely makes sense. But yeah, interesting what ifs. I'm still not sold on Robert Downey Jr. That's okay.
I got one more what if for you that I think would be
Yes,
really
let's hear it.
interesting. So Jennifer Connelly almost got the part of Diane Court.
And I would have been okay with that.
Oh, that would have
Honestly.
been so much better.
I think
Yeah.
she's more. I think Iona Sky did a great job.
Yeah.
I
He did.
think Jennifer Connelly is the unattainable girl. Right?
Yes.
Yes, agreed. 100%.
She's smart, she's beautiful. She's everything. Julia Roberts apparently was in the mix for this.
Yeah, I heard that too.
A Pretty Woman, Mystic Pizza era,
Right.
which I think is interesting. But Jennifer Connelly, I think, works. And
Yep.
then I heard Richard Dreyfuss possibly as Mr. Court.
See,
I could go with that.
That wouldn't be bad. I think I still prefer Mahoney because I still think there's that he has that slightly creepy vibe that I don't think Dreyfuss could pull off. You know, like I don't know. That would have been interesting. It would have been not bad. You know, there's that alternate universe video store we keep talking about.
I love it. Right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so a couple other things I want to mention before we move on. Now, we all know that Lloyd has two close friends that are girls, and then there's a third one, played Rebecca. Her name is the actress is Pamela Adlon. Now, if you look at her IMDb, she has a lot of TV and film credits doing a lot of voice work. Now, most people will know her as her role as Bobby Hill in King of the Hill. She was the voice of Bobby Hill, so I thought that was fun.
Whoa.
I know, right? Of course, Eric Stoltz is the one that hosts the party. With all that hair, sometimes it's not easy to recognize him. But what I thought was fun was he was actually being paid as a PA, production assistant. So he actually was a gopher on the set. And Cameron Crowe literally said he wanted to learn all aspects of filmmaking, so he was a PA on the set. So he actually is credited
Wow.
a production assisont. So yeah,
That's
I
a
thought that
great
was
nugget. Yeah.
right.
Does anybody else feel like his character moved to LA and became a drug dealer later on?
Well,
I
that's
love
a great.
that.
That's a great party, though. That's a great, but yes,
Right?
you know, yeah. Well, yes, he is a drug dealer, you know, and the needle in the heart.
Pulp Fiction, yeah.
Yes, I got there.
Okay.
Either that or he got dumped by Leah Thompson a couple years earlier and is still kind of recovering.
That's right. Right. That still ended better. Anyway, so I do want to mention the soundtrack because, of course, it's a Cameron Crowe soundtrack, so the soundtrack is awesome. Now, the band the Smithereens was actually hired to write a song for the soundtrack. The song "A Girl Like You" was written and recorded and performed, and the producers were like, the lyrics give too much of it away. So then they didn't use it. Eventually, it was replaced with "In Your Eyes," of course, from Peter Gabriel during the whole boombox scene. The song does appear on the Smithereens album 11, and it also appears on the extended soundtrack that I have on vinyl from Mondo. By the way, shout out to Mondo. They make great albums. So I have that. And it actually was a top 40 hit for the band when it was released a couple of years later. Now, mentioning "In Your Eyes," the boombox scene, which of course has become its own living creature. Like literally it's been parodied and referenced, dozens and dozens of times. So Cusack and Gabriel both kind of have embraced it. In October of 2012 at the Hollywood Bowl, Gabriel was performing. He began the song. Cusack came out on stage, gave him a boombox, took a bow, and then walked off the stage.
Oh my goodness.
And guess who was in the crowd? Yes, Cameron Crowe was there, and he tweeted out, said, "I will never forget this moment." So
that's the best story.
Right? So now, back in September 2023 at Madison Square Garden, once again, Gabriel was performing. And at the beginning of the song, he brought out an inflatable toy boombox, put it up over his head while he was performing the song as kind of a nod to the Lloyd character. So I thought that was fun.
It is, because Liam mentioned when we were watching it one of the 12 times this week, he was like, that's like some real commitment because those things aren't light. Like,
no,
there's like 12 batteries in there alone.
There is actually, and I even have I have a poster of that scene on my wall as well because, like I said, I wanted to be Lloyd. That's all there is to it. All
You're
right.
right. Those boomboxes had like 14 seed batteries in,
Right.
Yes. It was crazy. Yeah, that was commitment. Yeah. In the commentary, they went through so many different songs to try to find the right one. They actually had bands write songs and they couldn't find anything until they finally they settled on "In Your Eyes." So anyway, it works. It works.
My God, the pressure of such a pivotal scene.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, and not even knowing what song was going to be there. You shot the scene, and it was literally like the last day of shooting, and like the sun came up, so they had to stop. So it was that or nothing.
Wow,
crazy. All right. Any other facts we want to share before we move on? Cool.
That was totally wicked!
All right, it's time for That Was Totally Wicked. These are things we love about the film. Now, I could go on for an hour on my own, but we're going to let Jason go first.
My favorite thing in the entire movie is the scene at the Gas and Sip where he goes
man.
He's talking to his bros, right? He needs some advice. He needs some guy advice. So who do I go to? I go, of course, to my peers, who know nothing about dating because they're hanging out at the gas sip. They know nothing about women because they're sitting there alone on a Friday night. So I'm going to talk to these guys. But I do think those characters were dead on the nose for guys I knew in high school, guys on the baseball team. What should I be doing? Well, you need to find another one that looks just like her, nail her, and then dump her, man. Make you feel better. You know? But that scene is awesome. And then you have one guy who actually kind of breaks down and expresses some real feelings. And they're like, shut up, man.
Yeah,
you're bringing me down. So anyway, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie. I mean, the whole movie is just packed full of great moments. So
yes. All right, Amber, something you love about the film?
Well, you're going to accuse me of cheating, but
you cheat in every episode lately.
Right?
So why should this be any different?
But honestly, from the moment he picks Diane up for their date until the moment he drops her back off, that whole sequence is just perfection. Like, it's so charming when he first gets there, and the nervousness of you're dating this person you don't really know, but you're like, well, why not? Sounds like fun. We'll go to this party. You know, that, like I said before, that party is every party I went to in high school. I mean, slightly less drinking, but definitely all of those people were there. And then my absolute favorite moment is they're walking across the 7-Eleven parking lot, and he says, oh, watch out for that glass. And he kicks it out of the way and guides her around the broken glass in the parking lot. If you're not in love with Lloyd before, like, that is the moment when you completely and totally fall in love with him and no one will ever measure up.
Right. Well, even during the party, when Diane's talking to Corey, you know, and she's like, she says, it's too bad they all can't be like Lloyd. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, look, he even checks up on me. And he's just like looking at her, walking away and whatever.
Yeah.
So
like gives her a thumbs up. You okay? You need anything?
Yeah.
You good? Okay.
Yeah. And the fact that, he has to be the key master, like he shows up, it's like, I need you to be the key master. It's like, she's like, so it's an honor. He's like, no, it's not. Yes. There's just so many things about this. I mean, we can mention the soundtrack, which I will mention again later. We can mention just how much fun the chemistry between our actors, the friendship that Lloyd has with his little core group. But what I really want to mention is the smart writing. I mean, the dialogue is great, and it doesn't surprise me from Cameron Crowe, who was writing for Rolling Stone when he was 16 years old. So of course he knows how to write, but he knows how to write people. He knows how to write dialogue. Now, he also sets up something early that we don't really get until the end. And I think this is worth pointing out. Now, in the early part of the movie, when Diane graduates, she gets a car. She also gets a ring. You have when the first date or the dinner with her family, they talk about the jukebox that was $8,000. And if you notice on the walls, there are no family pictures. It's all pieces of artwork. So there's lots of things around the house. Now, this is important because later when she goes to meet the IRS boss, Philip Baker Hall, by the way, and he says, see if he fits the profile. Does he like to give a lot of gifts? Is everything around the house nice? Not so nice. And you're like, oh, crap. He set that up at like the first 20 minutes of this movie. And that is just smart writing. It's like he was just planting seeds that at that moment didn't really matter. But then by the end, when he says that, your brain kind of remembers everything that was told at the beginning. You're like, God, that was smart. And I love smart writing, and it's all over this movie in so many ways. Even the pen that he's like, break up with him, give him this pen. So she gives him the pen and breaks his heart. And then at the end of the movie, she gives a pen to her dad and says, write me. And I'm just like, a pen became an important symbol in this movie. That's just great writing. Yeah. Okay, I'm done for now. Anybody else wants to talk about something they love?
Well, I've got another thing that I had forgotten until you brought it up. I feel like a lot of what makes Lloyd who he is he's surrounded by these great girls.
Yep.
He's got his sister who is stressed out and a pain in the butt, but she is awesome. And he's got Corey and DC and kind of tangentially Rebecca, all there, like supporting him and appreciating him for who he is and wanting him to be the best version of himself. And I think that a lot of the men that we love that are great were surrounded by great women to kind of set them on the right path.
Right.
And I
Right.
love that he wrote those relationships.
Now, and even Crowe points this out too, and I always kind of picked up on this too, that especially that one scene when they're having a discussion without him, it was like, do you really think, someone like Diane would fall for Lloyd? And they're all kind of like, yeah. And it's like, because I think every single one of his friends, even BB Newirth's character to a point, are kind of a little bit in love with Lloyd. You know what I mean? And honestly, the reason that they don't, his friends don't date him is because they are his friends. You know what I mean? They don't want to ruin that friendship. But I think they're all hoping for him because they all want him to be happy because they're all a little bit in love with him. And I think that's, and it's there, but it's subtle. And I think that's another great thing, both written wise and also just acting. It's solid, man.
You mentioned that, things that we love about this movie, and you're right. It's written really smart. It's super well written, but the message of this movie is really great too.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's, are you brave enough to go up to the unattainable girl and ask her out? And it rewards that bravery. He decided one day, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to swing for the fence, and it pays off for him. As I was watching this movie too, it's so real. Like, Amber talked about how that's like every party you ever went to in high school. And it really nails that. That was my experience as well. People are interacting. You're kind of tangentially friends with everybody, but you have tighter friends or whatever. If somebody tried to make a movie like this today and set it in 1989, they'd be playing Thriller and somebody be skipping to Cyndi Lauper. And that just wasn't total, that would be a caricature of the 80s.
Yes.
This is the real 80s, So anyway, I just think it's so real and I love the message.
Yes. Yeah. And actually that was one of the things about it, that the film is so grounded in reality. Like, it literally, like, none of the characters are over the top. There's nobody that you don't believe. Like, you're looking, like, in the party scene, like, to Amber's point, you've seen that party. These people are all like that whole fight. You've always seen this, the guys at the gas and sip. You knew guys like that. Everything, every character in here, we either know or have seen. And dialogue wise, yes, it's smart, but it's not like Dawson's Creek dialogue where people don't really talk like that.
Yes, like
what I mean?
Sound like they're,
they sound like they're high school. Yeah. These sound like they're actual high school graduates. Like, they just got out of high school. The way they talk, I mean, it's just, everything is so real and written so well and so believable that you're completely believe and you're sucked into this world. And you're like, okay, I'm in Seattle with these guys and I'm totally into this. So it's just, from beginning to end, this movie is, like I said, practically perfect. And yeah, it's wonderful. I could keep going, but I do want to mention the soundtrack again, just briefly, because Cameron Crowe, like, even when you go back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which he didn't, wasn't his, he didn't direct, but music in his films are super important. Now, he was one of those people that knew a lot of music. I mean, obviously, writing for Rolling Stone, you kind of get exposed to stuff before other people. Now, obviously, we know the song In Your Eyes became a hit again because of this. Fantastic. But you also have Soundgarden is on this soundtrack. This is 3 years before grunge really became anything. So ahead of the curve on that one. You have Fishbone, The Replacements. I want to mention Joe Satriani because, he's an instrument, mostly known for his instrumentals. Now, by the way, he also was a guitar teacher that taught Steve Vai and Kirk Hammett and some other people. So the guy knows what he's doing. I just think it's interesting that we get him on here as well. So the soundtrack definitely has, his touch all over it. And I think that's fantastic. It's very of the time without, to your point, there's no Michael Jackson on here. There's no Cyndi Lauper. There's no, ridiculous 80s choices to make you tell, no, this is in the 80s. This is different. This feels real. This is the stuff you'd hear. I mean, you have Aerosmith, of course, you have that stuff. So you have songs we know. And I think a lot of all the choices on here were great. At the party, you do hear Living Color in the background, which is fantastic. So this is just a well cultivated soundtrack in every possible way.
I got one thing for you on the soundtrack.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
So, Girl Like You by the Smithereens. I remember when that was a hit in
Yep, I have that
spring
record.
of 1990, right? It was
Yes.
a great song.
Yes.
The one thing I can't figure out, in all honesty, the song that they set to the closing credits, the Nancy Wilson song, All for Love.
Yeah, I know.
I think that should have been, that could have easily, at this time, with the Mariah Careys and all that others, this could have been a big hit. I don't understand why it wasn't a bigger hit.
Honestly, I hate to say it because I love Nancy, but that's actually my least favorite song on the soundtrack. It's
the most radio
spoilers. That's
friendly,
my favorite song.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
I think it's a great song.
No, you're right. I'm a little surprised that it wasn't a bigger, and I don't even remember it being released as a single. You know what I mean?
I watched the video.
I only heard it in this movie.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all. So, and you do hear it a couple times in the movie. You hear it in the credits and early in the movie too. So yeah, that is surprising. I mean, it's Nancy, so why? She appears on all of his films for the longest time anyway. She's actually in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, by the way. Anything else you want to talk?
She was in this movie too.
Yes. Well, actually, so was Cameron Crowe. They were extras walking down the sidewalk when he was doing his.
Miss it?
Yeah, seriously, it's like you really can't even tell it's them, but I know because he says it on the commentary. But yes, I think that's fun. All right. Any other things we love before we move on?
For my money, this is has one of the best final scenes.
Yes.
Of any movie, like right up there with Casablanca.
Yep.
I absolutely love that end sequence of them on the plane. And I love that it ends with the ding.
Yep. I know. Yeah. It's perfect. It's because you
so
watch it because now you're waiting for the ding too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just such a great setup. And you're just kind of like, you're watching, he's like, any second now, any second now. And then it's just great. Yes. 100%. Fantastic ending. So yes, that's high praise saying it's up there with Casablanca. And I don't disagree because I love that movie too, but I don't disagree. All right, let's move on.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
It's time for No, Sir, I Didn't Like It. These are things we don't like or don't work within the film. I'm going to be totally honest. I have more of a question, but I will let you guys go first. Jason, is there anything that doesn't work for you?
I hope I don't steal your question because I only have one question and one thing that really doesn't work.
Okay.
And it's only on this side of history that doesn't work for me. So
okay, I'm super curious.
Yeah, so in 1989, I'm 16 years old, and I think Lloyd Dobler is the greatest dude ever, and I'm so proud of his, go take a shot, dude. You go, dude.
Right.
Well, now in 2025, my question to you, and maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. Is there any part of you, as the father of a daughter, who says, Lloyd's a great guy, but he is going to mess up your path towards success? Like, you're going to England, you're on a flight to somewhere, and he's a kickboxer or a sport of the future. You know what I mean?
So, if I'm John Mahoney, no, because I'm a crook. So, what right does he have? He literally was robbing people for years and hid it from his daughter, and now he's in jail. So he really doesn't have
not. He's got a point.
So, okay, this is the way I look at it. I think they even kind of address it at the end of the movie. Nobody thinks it's going to work, and Lloyd says, "You just described every great success story."
True.
So, honestly, considering most divorces end up, most marriages end up divorce, or half of them end up in divorce. So I give him better a 50-50 chance, because why not? I mean, maybe he gets over to London, maybe he finds something he loves, and she goes and does her thing, and who knows? I honestly never thought past that, because that ding is where it ends for me. But, that's an interesting question. I want to hear what Amber has to say.
Well, so this sort of leads into what I didn't like about the movie, which is I don't like John Mahoney's character, and I don't like the IRS subplot thing. Like, you could cut all of that out. It's the same movie.
Oh, I disagree.
I'm completely disinterested. But what I don't like is to your point, the way he really very passively aggressively tries to get her to dump Lloyd.
Yep.
And for no reason. It's not like she's talking about, now that I think about it, maybe I won't go to England. Maybe I'll take a gap year. Or, I mean, she says that for her father because his life is a shit show. But she doesn't say, I love this guy. Maybe I'll stay. And no, she is 100% career trajectory. I have my plan. I'm doing my plan. So there's really no reason for him to want them to break up.
He doesn't want to share his daughter. That's what it is. He's jealous of his daughter.
I disagree, Amber. I disagree. I think there's tons of reasons for him to want to get in the way.
But they're not
only if
not because Lloyd's not a great guy.
No, I'm going into it. Only if you think that his responsibility in the relationship is to provide for her and take care of her. Maybe she is the breadwinner and he's the one who is the homemaker, and that's their balance. If he was the successful one and he was dating a girl that didn't really have a plan and didn't really know what she wanted to be, nobody would worry about it because, well, she would be the wife and that would be fine. So he's just going to be the wife.
Yep.
I'm not even saying they're getting
and she's
married.
She's going to take care of everything. Like, I have no concern about her following her path because she never deters.
Oh, I agree. Regardless of whether it works out with Lloyd or not, she's still going to end up making something of herself. There's that never, I just think Mahoney's character's a jerk. All right. Well, seriously,
I hate that passive aggressive parenting crap. Like, say what your truth is and speak up, or don't say anything. Like, let him go make their mistakes.
He doesn't want to share his daughter with anybody.
Well,
like
that's gross.
Say anything right there.
So I actually will push back. I do like the subplot, the IRS subplot, because I think it's important.
It's unnecessary.
No, but I think it's important because it adds a lot of drama. The fact is, here's this guy that does everything for his daughter and says, you can say anything to me. And she does. And she keeps to that. He does not. He betrays his daughter in every possible way. He tries
never apologizes. Like,
no, he's
always making excuses.
Yep. I know. I take better care of them than their parents do, but you stole from them. I mean, and so it goes along with the title. He says it multiple times to her, and he's not truthful to her. And I think that's important. And I think if you take that subplot away, then he's just kind of a jerk of a dad trying to break up his daughter's relationship. This proves that he was saying anything, you can say this to me, and she does. I mean, could you imagine having that conversation she did after she spent the night with Lloyd? I'm like, no. So she does. She unloads everything to her dad, and he does not do that back. And to me, that's important.
Sometimes it feels like you're watching two different movies.
Okay. But that's fine. I think it's important.
I mean, I'm stretching here.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love this movie. I don't care.
I know.
But
and honestly, I see, Jason's question, what happens when they go? And honestly, I think she succeeds regardless of what she does. And, Lloyd is always looking for a dare to be great situation. He literally found one. So I think he'll embrace that and do whatever he has to make sure it works out. And so that's the way I always look at it. It might be my fairy tale ending. I don't care. And I'm happy with it because, he's Lloyd, and everybody loves Lloyd. So, except for John Mahoney's character, which proves why he's such a jerk. Okay. Here's my thing. And this is not a complaint. This is more of an observation after seeing this movie so many times. My brain saw something, and every time I watch this movie, I lose like 20 minutes. So, okay, this happens at the very beginning of the movie, so stay with me. So we open on Corey's place, and you have Corey, DC, and Lloyd talking, and there's a whole, I'm going to ask out Diane Court. We find out they ate lunch together at the mall, Okay, then you go on the whole graduation sequence. We see Diane talking about her speech, the whole graduation, Okay, that's over. Lloyd is making lunch. Sister comes home, nephew comes home, and he's like, strength, whatever. We get that whole little cute scene. Okay, we cut away from that. Diana back home with dad. You have to teach me the stick shift. And here's your ring. Here's yet another gift. Okay, here's another gift. I can't believe it is. Whatever. Okay, find out. We cut back to Lloyd. Lloyd's working out. He's working on the heavy bag, of course, listening to Joe Satriani, all that stuff. And the little nephew's there with him, J-Man's there with him. So they come in and and he goes and makes a phone call, which is a great scene because he's pacing back and forth, right? Great scene. Okay. Leaves the message. The dad gets the phone call from about the fellowship, drives out there, sees her. She's working. Now, remember, this is all one day. Okay. This is all one day, which is a really big day. So then, okay. It is. It is. Yes, okay. Because he even says, that trust me.
I trust you. It's fine.
It's the same day because remember, because they talk about I had lunch with her yesterday at the mall, even when he makes the phone call about the date. So it's still that day. Okay. Now, after she finds out about the fellowship, we go back to Lloyd. And Diane sees, actually go back to Diane, she sees a little note, so she calls him. Now, when the sister answers the phone, she's still wearing the same clothes from when they came home, and Lloyd is still making his lunch. So when she got home before, he's making his lunch. There's no food in your food. And he's wearing the same clothes, the little boy's wearing the same clothes, and she's wearing the same clothes. Literally, a bunch of stuff happened between him making his lunch and actually getting to eat his lunch. I promise you, it's the same scene. They just dropped a bunch of stuff. So when Lloyd's sister comes home, I'm sorry I missed your graduation. Oh, it's fine. He's making a sandwich. He's putting mustard on there. He's getting the pickle out. He's getting his his big gulp cup from 7-Eleven out of the fridge or whatever. A bunch of stuff happens, and we come back and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, Corey. Oh wait, Diane Court, and she runs into the bathroom. Too bad. Great scene. He was making his lunch. Still.
So you're saying they filmed that within like an hour of.
What I'm saying is they shot that scene.
The continuity doesn't work.
They cut it because the flow works better with all those other sequences. Now, like I said, the way it's actually cut is perfect. Pacing is awesome. Everything moves wonderfully. We get all kinds of great information. But my brain now sees that a bunch of stuff happened in the middle of him making a sandwich. Now I can't unsee it.
I mean, he's a 19-year-old boy, so it's possible that was like second breakfast.
Right.
Just
and same clothes, right?
Yes.
Wearing the same clothes, not out of the question, right?
And that's true. That is true. But watch the sequence again and pay attention to what they're wearing when she comes home, and then pay attention when she answers the phone when Diane calls. Everybody's wearing the same stuff, and it's just like, I mean, now granted, he wears that Clash t-shirt a lot. That's fine. Yeah. I know that, but this is not what he's wearing when that happens. He's standing at the counter. His food is still on the table. And see, ever since I've seen that, I realized that I'm like, damn it.
Okay.
That's it's me getting a little bit too observant or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it shows we've seen this movie like 5,000 times.
Yes. And like I said, the way this whole sequence is cut is great. We get just enough of each scene to learn what's going on and get to know. It's great. But my brain now sees that and goes, it's anyway. But like I said, that's it. I don't have any complaints about anything else in this entire film. That's my only one. So I don't even care that the counselor shows up at the party. Come on in. Whatever. Anyway. All right. Anything else we don't like before we move on?
Nothing.
Nope. Fantastic.
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
Fine.
All right. It's time for Smiling's my favorite. These are some favorite things we have about the film. Now, favorite character. Jason, you get to go first.
Oh, come on. It's Lloyd. That's the only answer. Everybody loves Lloyd.
I have a backup answer because I knew somebody was also going to take Lloyd. And all the guys wanted to be Lloyd and all the girls wanted to marry him. So yes, it's fair. He's great. So I understand.
I mean, I think Lily Taylor, Corey in this is great.
Yes.
She's the super cool girlfriend,
right. Who works at the guitar store and
yeah.
and that's pictures of Joe still on her wall.
She's got one big flaw where she can't get over this guy.
Yep.
But other than that, she's great for Lloyd. She supports him. She encourages him. She, stands by him. And,
And
she
actually,
even tries to caution him because she doesn't want to see him get hurt.
yes, but you know what? He even says, "But I want to get hurt." So,
Right.
Which I'll come back here in just a minute. So,
That's right.
to your point with Corey, my answer is actually his friends, Corey, DC, and Rebecca. They kind of work as me as a group because they're almost always together. So, as a group, they're my favorite characters aside from Lloyd. And to your point, because they are there supporting them, they are there helping him be a better person and whatever. And so, yeah, every scene that they're in, I love. And yes, the gas and sip scene is hilarious, but like Lloyd, I'd rather hang out with those three women than those four guys. I'm just saying. All right, Amber, your favorite character?
You and I are in complete agreement.
Uh-oh.
It is DC, Corey, and Rebecca.
Yes.
I love the banter amongst the girls as well.
Yes.
Like when DC was like, "You never let me talk," and Corey's like, "Okay, go ahead," and she goes, "Well, now I can't remember what I was going to say."
Right.
Just all those little moments, and how, even at the end when they're on the plane, I never caught it before, but Corey made that box of goodies for them with books and magazines and snacks and
cassettes. Yep.
Yeah. Like, what a good friend. And there is something so real and so my high school experience. I was not this obsessive, but of falling in love with a guy that does not love you back.
Right.
And like I wrote 65 songs about Joe and I'm going to sing every single one of them. Like, I didn't do it, but I relate really hard to it.
Yeah. I think we all knew a person like that, that fell so hard. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yes. Agreed.
So I love Corey the most, but I love all three of them together.
Yes, I agree.
We used to sing her songs a little bit when we would be hanging out with our friends. We would just be at the mall and somebody would be like, "Joe lies."
Oh, I love that. A bunch of and you can actually hear a bunch of those are actually because they actually did demos for some of those, and you can actually hear them. I found them online. I'll have to look them up again. But yes, there's a couple other songs, all written by, from what I understand, Nancy wrote those. Just because, why not? Your wife's a musician. Why not use her? There you go.
Right.
All right. So I know we kind of touched on it a little bit. So favorite scenes is yours still the gas and sip?
Gas and sip, man.
All right.
Lloyd, man, no babe is worth it, dude.
No.
Listen, hang with us, man. We'll teach you Bibles full of truth.
Right.
Lloyd, man, you can't even trust them, man. Because you know what it's about? They spend your money and they tell their friends everything, man. It's about economics.
That's valid,
They
man.
tell them everything.
That's
man,
valid.
all you gotta do is find a girl that looks just like her,
that.
nail her, and then dump her, man.
Dump her,
Get
man.
her off your
Lloyd
mind.
knows we're right.
Your only mistake is that you didn't dump her first.
Word.
Diane Court is a show pony. You need a
that
stallion,
much.
my friend. Walk with us and you walk tall.
Walk tall, my man.
Bitches, man.
All right. Sounds good.
Bitches, man. That's the biggest laugh in the movie.
I do want to point out that when Diane says, when she's telling her dad about that she spent the night with Lloyd, and she goes, "But I attacked him anyway." Apparently, during the first few screenings, everybody cheered when she said that. Whole crowd, yes, love it. Anyway, okay. All right, Amber,
I want
your favorite.
to add.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I just
No, go
want to
ahead.
jump in. I don't want to cut Amber off, but
No.
There's a really sweet scene where he's teaching her how to drive a stick shift.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And it's so practical, and it's something that a couple would do. Right. It's this, they're not doing anything bad. They're just hanging out, and he's teaching how to drive stick shift. I just think that was a really sweet scene, and it's lovely. So,
Well, and he's so supportive because she's like destroying that transmission. And he's like, yeah, it shouldn't really sound like that, but you'll get better. And
It'll get
stop
better.
making that noise.
I love that. All right, Amber, your favorite scene?
I just have two.
Okay.
The one, it absolutely breaks my heart, but after she breaks up with him and he calls his sister from the payphone in the rain.
Yep, the phone booth. Yep, that was on my list.
Oh, I mean, his sister's just so sweet to him, and you see how she really does take care of him.
Yep.
And the fact that like so much is made of Diane calling her dad from the party and stuff, and Lloyd needing someone to make that phone call too is just, oh, that whole scene is just devastating. But my absolute favorite scene is the scene with the girls in Corey's room when she says, I get choked up because she says, if you're dying in court, would you actually fall for Lloyd?
Right.
And they all smile and they all go, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Yes, because we're all a little bit in love with him. Yep.
Yep.
So I do want to mention the phone booth scene that you mentioned because it has that great line, I gave her my heart, she gave me a pen. That actually made it on the AFI's 100 best quotes of all time, by the way. Also, a little fun fact, he is actually talking to his sister Joan on the phone. They actually arranged it so he was able to call her. So they were actually talking to each other during that. So I think that's fantastic. So, well, you took one of mine, so good, but you didn't take two. I had three in being prepared. So my honorable mention is the scene where Diane confronts her father when she finds the money. When she goes to the home, and it's like, did you do it? And he says no, and she's like, I found the money. She's like, just totally annihilates him. I think that's great, and all that emotion that's on her face, and just that's such a great scene. But ultimately, my favorite scene, because there's so many, but the one that so perfectly sets up the entire movie is that very opening scene at Corey's place. Okay. You get to know Lloyd, you get to know Corey in DC. The discussion, we find out that he had lunch, with her the day before, and I'm going to ask her out, and she tries to talk him out of it. And he even says, like I said before, I want to get hurt. And he does. It sets up the entire movie, and it's only the few minutes long, and it's great. You get so much information. You're introduced to all the main characters. You don't see Diane, but he talks about her. So our whole main cast is already introduced to us right out the get, and it's just done so well. So love that scene. Love how it's put together. That's my favorite scene. All right. Moving on. Favorite song from the soundtrack.
Hang on, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt.
Okay, go ahead.
One scene that nobody has mentioned yet, but it's like maybe the most iconic scene from the movie. It's where he's sitting down and they're all having dinner together, and he's like, "What are you doing, Lloyd? Like what?" And he's talking about buying anything.
I don't want to buy anything. I don't want to sell anything.
I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to process anything. Right?
I'm coming to part of that with my quote. So
okay. Okay.
I promise. But that's a great scene. That's a great scene. But yeah, it's fantastic. I want that jukebox, by the way. I don't have $8,000, but I want that jukebox. Oh my God. Anyway. All right. So let's do a favorite song from the soundtrack. Apparently I ruined Amber's.
I just, that you first hear it playing in Lloyd's car.
Yep.
And I immediately was like, what is that? What's that song? And then you get to hear it in its entirety over the end credits. And
yep.
I mean, who doesn't love Nancy Wilson? So
agreed.
It's a win-win.
All right.
I actually like it better than In Your Eyes.
Me too.
Interesting. Yeah.
Me too.
I can go along with that. I'm not a big fan of In Your Eyes, so I'm okay with that. All right. Jason, your favorite song from the soundtrack?
I mean, my favorite song from the soundtrack is Cult of Personality.
Yep. It's a good one.
And that's one of my favorite songs of the 80s. But I am a big fan of All for Love, and I'm a big fan of A Girl Like You. So there's winners all around. But for me, mark me down, Cult of Personality.
All right. So I'm actually going to cheat a little bit on the actual soundtrack that you find the CD or the cassette or whatever, even on in the credits. One Big Rush from Joe Satriani is on there. You actually hear it twice. You hear it mostly when he's working out against the heavy bag. And as I said before, he was a guitar teacher, Steve Vai, Kirk Hammett, and Alex Skolnick. So just name a few. Now on the extended soundtrack, it has the demo for A Girl Like You from the Smithereens. So that is my choice because I do own the soundtrack and it is there and it's a great song. But you can't really go wrong with most of the songs on the soundtrack, but those are my two favorites. All right, so this is going to be interesting. Our favorite quote from the film, because as we mentioned, the writing in this movie is great, and there's a line pretty much every scene that you could pull out. But I have two. One that's advice, and one I like to say at least once a month. So, Jason, what's your favorite quote from the film?
Well, my favorite quote from the film, and I may not get this entirely right, but it's when Corey tells him, "Don't be a guy, be a man."
The world is full of guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
love
actually
that
that one's actually on
And her
mine.
delivery is so perfect as well.
So that was on mine because I kind of take that as Vice. You know what I mean? Because the line, because this is when they broke it up. He's like, I've called her 36 times. I draw the line at 36 times. And, she's like, why are you like this? Because I have pride. I'm a guy. She says, you're not a guy. He's like, I am. He goes, the world is full of guys. Be a man. Don't be a guy. I took that as advice. And yes, 100% it is. And those words, there's never been truer words spoken to a guy, from a girl. And so I love that. And since we mentioned that one, I'm going to go ahead and mention my other one. This is one I just love to say. Anytime somebody asks me a question I can't answer, and it goes to the dinner scene, I just go, I don't know. I can't figure it all out tonight, sir. I'm just going to hang with your daughter.
Yeah.
It's just such a great response because he's been rambling, and then he's like, I don't know. I just love how he says that. I use that so much. Somebody asks me a question, I'm like, yeah, I can't answer. I don't know. Can't figure it all tonight, sir. I'm just gonna hang with your daughter. Love that. All right. So Amber, your favorite quote from the film?
So this film, it took Liam a long time to see it. Don't ask me where my parenting lapse occurred, but it's just one of those things. But so when we saw it, there were two lines, and he was like, this is what that's from, because apparently I say them an inordinate amount of times just in life. The first one my brother and I used to say all the time is bitches, man. Funniest line in the whole movie. We said that all the time.
It is hilarious.
But the one that I say so much is I gave her my heart and she gave me a pen.
Yep.
It's applicable in so many situations. And I mean, how can you describe that devastation? Like, it's just the perfect line.
Yep. And like I said, it made AFI's 100 list, best quotes in film. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's one line that I think kind of cuts deep. It's kind of overlooked because it's not said by Lloyd or Diane. But it's when Lloyd's in prison and he's talking to Mr. Court and he's saying, look, I'm trying to be the intermediary. She's in the car. She didn't want to come in. She didn't want to talk to you, but I think it's important. But, he's doing his Lloyd thing. And he's talking to him and Mr. Court bursts out and he just says, I'm incarcerated, Lloyd.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't deserve this. I mean, it just, all of the weight of his bad decisions hits at that one moment, and it's a slap in the face almost, so
yes. If you say John Mahoney to me, like, that's one of the first things I think of.
Yeah.
Nice. And it's funny too, because right before that, he really tears into Lloyd. I don't know how she can chap in mediocrity, with you in there. And it's funny too, because he gets up and walks away, and there's a look on Lloyd's face like, I can totally smack you and knock you unconscious, or I could be the better person. And he reaches into that pocket and pulls out the letter instead. And there's another one of those choices that he makes that proves he's a better person, definitely a better person than her dad. So, like I said, he was, ripping off grandma and grandpa for years. He deserves to go to jail. Sorry. Anyway. All right. But yeah, it's, he's really upset. I'm like, I don't deserve this. I'm thinking, yes, you do. Anyway. All right.
He treated those people better than their families did.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah. And he took their money. So, and I will say one thing. I did, when he goes to buy the luggage for his daughter and his car gets turned down, it's the look on his face when she's like, just go ahead and take it, and I at that point, I actually did feel a little sorry for him, because that had to feel terrible. But part of me was like, but you did this. But at the same time, the look on his face, he's just like, at that point, everything was shattered. He's like, yeah, it's like.
Well, I think I did feel bad for him then. And then what I realized when Diane confronts him is I kept waiting for the reason. I kept waiting for him to say, I don't know, some excuse where he was making it make sense, and he really doesn't. It's like
he was saving. Well, he said he was saving all that money for her.
Wrong. Yeah, but he doesn't really think he was committing a crime.
No, he doesn't. He's like, he even said, when I get old, give me somebody like me to take care of me. So
like,
I know he thinks he did everything. I know that's what made him such a neat. He's a great villain. You think he's a great guy, and it turns out he's a villain. And that's just great writing. It really is.
That's what makes villains so great, is when they think what they're doing is correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're the hero of their own.
And I love that her character
story.
is unwavering in her condemnation of him. She's just like, lied to me. Like, who are you?
Yep.
And he's trying to justify it. She's just not having it. So
yeah, I know. It's great. That's when she confronts him. It's a great scene. Absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Final word and rating, 1 to 5 film reels. Jason, you go first.
I mean, I can't give this anything other than 5. I mean,
right there with you.
Yep.
I think it's a wonderful. I love the message. Like we said before, be bold, be brave, take your shot.
Right.
And if you're a good person, chances are good. Right.
Right.
But I just love the message. When it comes to love, be brave.
Yep. Looking for a dare to be great situation.
That's it.
All right. Yes, it's an absolute 5 for me. Amber, I'm assuming it's 5 for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I like the idea of, you're young and you're only going to live once. So, take the plane to England, and what's the worst that could happen,
Well, apparently his family lives in Germany, so he could just go over there.
Yep.
Whatever. No, it's this movie, and I said it is practically perfect. And, even with my brain trying to make it harder than it is, it's so good. There's no slow spots, so much fun to watch. The music is great. The characters are wonderful. The camera, I mean, it's just, and it still to this day floors me that, because when you watch a Cameron Crowe film, you're not watching for slick direction. You're not watching for really awesome shots. He is so good at developing characters and getting these great performances out of these people, making characters that are, these people can really invest themselves into. And he does it so perfectly. I'm thinking the dude was barely in his 20s when he made this. It was his first film he's directing, and right out of the gate, home run right out of the gate. I'm like, that's just not fair. It's just not fair.
Right.
But anyway, yes, we don't have a lot of perfect films on the podcast, but this is definitely one of. Actually, last time Jason was here, we had The Incredibles, and all of us straight 5s all the way around. So,
yeah, that's right.
That's right. So, all right, very good. So let's bring this to an end, and this has been so much fun because it's easy when you have a great movie, and it makes it even better when you have great guests. Make sure to check out Jason over on the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast, a podcast for the MTV generation. Jason and Dee over there do such a great job. Nostalgia has never sounded so good. So thank you for being here, Jason.
Thanks for having me, man. I had a great time. Thanks for waiting for me.
And of course, hashtag Team Amber. Thank you, Amber, for being here.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun.
We want to thank our listeners, of course, for spending time with us every week. Let us know what you think about this film, about Cameron Crowe, Joan Cusack, and Ione Skye. Let us know on social media. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And help us out, rate and review the podcast. If we see the review, we will read it on an episode and share it online as well. If you want to support the podcast in other ways, check out our Patreon. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial and get a glimpse at everything we have over there. Some recent reviews include Spirited Away, and also top 7 DVD Blu-ray bonus features. Amber was on that episode along with Jeff Johnson from A Phil By and Robert. That was a great episode. That is actually a free episode right now. You can check it out and let us know what you think. Our next episode, actually Amber will be hosting. It's a review of the 2016 science fiction film starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, Arrival. That's going to be pretty awesome. Now, upcoming episodes for the rest of us. In April, Disney Through the Decades series kicks off. The movies we'll be discussing on that section will be Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, Fantasia, Sleeping Beauty, then Jungle Book, and the listener voted The Rescuers. So that's the part 1 of 2. Part 2 will be over the summer, but those are the first 5 movies we'll be discussing because you know what? We're all Disney nuts on this podcast, and that's why I decided we're going to do. So that's why we're doing it. So anyway, do yourself a favor. Watch more movies. And remember, physical media is better than streaming.
Where's the ding?
It's coming. Any second now. Any second now.
The Docking Bay 77 podcast is produced and edited by Dayton Johnson. Recorded with Rode Pod mics, the Zoom PodTrack P4, and edited on Audacity. Opening music provided by Eric Jason Brock. You can find him on YouTube and Bandcamp. Thank you for listening.
In your eyes, there's someone